Hello, this is National Chess Master, all rats. I'm here at chess.com. I'm going to analyze a member game played between Memo67 and verydead. verydead submitted this. It was played with the time control of 30 minutes for the game. So let's have a look. Okay, so far so book, and this is a mistake by white, and I'm very glad that black knew the trick, the center fork trick, and here it comes. You take on e4. And black gets at least equality. If white takes on f7 with check, he just ends up with the worst game. Black has the two bishops, will castle by hand. The pawn will probably go up to g6. The king will find shelter on g7, and it's all black's game after that. Okay, so he took care, and now the center fork. And white returns the piece, and once again, though, black gets the two bishops, and his king isn't displaced, so he can castle. Knight c3. Now, there's really not much analysis on this position because nobody plays into it, but I guess they still do, and they still will. As people learn chess, it's always going to be there. You know, they knew about this well over 100 years ago. I think probably the best move is queen a5. I'm going to suggest that rather than coming back to d8, although playing back to d8 certainly isn't a bad move. You're basically going into a Scandinavian defense type position, or if you will, an Imzovich exchange variation where white hasn't played d4, and you've got the two bishops. White doesn't have his light squared bishop, and I think this position will suit black just fine. So I think queen a5 is the best move here. Don't count on getting this variation too much in the future, but you know, if it helps, if you're familiar with the basis of the Scandinavian defense, that's the square that black puts his queen, and he does that with a light squared bishop on the board. Okay, so the light squared bishop can do a number of things, and it can go to c4 and menace f7. It can go to b5 and pin the knight. And without that bishop on the board, it's the queen's just quite fine on a5. So let's just carry on and see what happened. Okay, so this is good. Get pieces developed. Now here, I really think white falls into a faulty plan. He's eyeballing winning that pawn on e5, and I've made countless videos for Team 45 League, and I see people playing these pawn to rook 3 moves, and I'm puzzled by them. They don't develop a thing, okay? They don't. The game is even. Black's got the bishop pair. That's it. What white needs to do is what? Develop. Develop your pieces. If you don't develop your pieces, you're gonna get beat, because the other side will bring them out. Like I say, chess is a game of war. If you keep all these guys on the back rank, okay, if you keep them all on the back rank and just fight with these two knights, you're going to get overwhelmed, okay? Period. So what should white do here? Well, d3, if anything. It opens up a diagonal for a bishop, but white's eyeballing winning this pawn, and that's his plan. And white doesn't have time to stop and win a pawn because black is getting developed. And here it goes. Here comes the trick. And I'm not sure if knight e7 is the best. You know, black's giving up a pawn. Knight to d4 puts the knight on a nice active square in the center. If then white takes on e5, I'm sure black can start finding some good moves here. That's something for black to analyze on his own. But I think there's nothing wrong with the move he played, but I think knight d4 is just a bit more accurate. Okay, so now white's achieved his aim. He has won a pawn, but at what price? Development's about even. Both sides have castled, but the white queen bishop's having a little trouble getting into play. It's going to get into play on b2, but that's not all that good of a square for it. It would serve itself much better somewhere else. Even get it on e3 and oppose that dark squared bishop of black's, but you know, he stopped and won a pawn, and this is a very interesting move. This in the follow-up, I was quite impressed by black's play here. What black is doing is saying, you know, I don't mind being a pawn. I've got open lines. And now look at this. For the price of one simple pawn, black's got all kinds of pressure here. White's kind of hard-pressed to find a good continuation because he had 2 developed pieces, now only has 1. He's got his pawn up, but it's a long way off to convert that pawn. And Black's got open lines. There's pressure on f2. Okay, so let's see what happened. Now the bishop went to b2. He got that developed. Now all White needs to do now is develop his queen and develop his queen rook. And if he can do that safely, he may have the better game because he's a pawn ahead. But it's a long way to go here. And actually right here, Black missed a very, very strong continuation. It's kind of surprising. I was playing with this and said, wow, what about this? Okay, Black to play and do the best he can. Pause the video and see what you come up with. Okay, you've resumed the video. And like I say, there's nothing wrong with Black's move except he had a better continuation. Okay, watch this. Rook takes f2. It's kind of surprising. You pretty much have to take, or you're giving up the world. Now Black has regained his pawn. I really think White has to tuck his king in the corner here, and then Black's got the 2 bishops, an open board, and he's definitely got the better game, because if White takes that bishop, it's disaster city. Because now queen d4 check. Where's the king go? If he goes to e1, there's a queen check on g1. King must go to e2, and then bishop g4 check wins the queen for a bishop. So king e1 is out. If king f1, then Black can just play bishop g4 anyway, attacking the queen and getting ready to check with the rook. And I think White doesn't survive that. So that leaves one other move for White, king g3. And I'm going to leave this to the player of the black pieces, Mr. verydead, to find a continuation against that. Because the way to improve is to analyze, and I'm kind of giving guys some shortcuts, giving you some ideas to send you back to the homework table and see what you can come up with. Okay, because that's how you improve, by analyzing your games, not anybody else's, yours. Okay, so he missed rook f2, and let me find the right spot here on the PGN. Okay, but queen g5 is good. It just keeps up the pressure, and then White just immediately gave up that pawn, and now Black wins it. And it's similar to the line I suggested, except the rook stayed on the board, and then Black's move was queen j5. But Black is just in complete domination here, and I think, let's see, there's one point where Black went wrong, and I'll show you here in just a second. Yeah, it was there. Queen, because here he's just, well, Black went wrong in here. I'm just getting confused on the lines. I was spending some time with this, and I'm sorry. My continuation was better. Something went wrong in here, because suddenly after this capture, White has bagged the piece, and Black just doesn't have enough for it. So my idea was better. I think bishop f2 was fine. Let me think. Queen. I guess you can't stay on the bishop. So bishop takes f2 was probably the mistake. I'm just getting slightly confused, and I apologize. I don't want to have to redo this video and go turn this on a computer engine and solve it, because I already went through this. But I could be missing something. But my continuation was better. Queen g5 was okay, but taking on f2 with the rook was deadly. Okay, so anyway, White's now up a piece, and unfortunately Black's game has gone to pieces. But he continues up the pressure, and as best he can. Now there's a mate threat, and here White starts tossing away his advantage. I think if White just moves his knight, say to d3 or g4 or maybe h3, that he's holding on to the threats here. Let's see, knight d3. The queen now guards this critical square. Now it's true Black can kick this, but White has resources. There's in this case there's rook takes f8 check, and then if the rook takes back, then the queen's still holding g2, and if the king takes, if anything, we can check with the rook and maybe even win the rook on e8. It gets tricky. So White had some resources here that he didn't see, and instead he played rook g1, which just got him in a bad bind. Let me find the right spot here. Okay, so now rook e8, and White says, well, if I can trade queens, all will be well. But the problem is now he's given back this knight on f2, and suddenly the black position is now clearly winning. It's opposite colored bishops, but those don't mean a thing because we're still in the middle game, and White's the one that's being pressured. He doesn't have any counterplay. He just doesn't have time to run over and do something. Black will always have resources. So White says, well, when in doubt, trade queens, but that doesn't release the pressure. Maybe that kind of didn't like the way that clicked. Two moves at a time. Do it this way. Takes. So, Black just picks up another pawn, tempoing the bishop, threatening to double rooks on the 7th, crawling all over g2. Game, set, match, White. It's just basically routine at this point. Rook e2 or rook e2. Okay, then here comes a nice move by Black. Just check, forcing. It gives White only one move. Forcing continuations are always easy to analyze because White has one legal move here. So you examine, the possible captures on g2. You could take with the rook. You could take with the bishop. Well, the bishop does it because he must take back, and now you pick up that rook, or you could even take the other rook if you want. Let's look at it. Rook takes check is going to force the other rook off the board. Rook takes e1. It doesn't matter if he plays bishop g1 or rook g1. Black's getting rid of the rooks, but this is fine too because the rooks are still deadly on the 7th rank, and White just kind of panics here in a moment, and now White's faced with a mate threat on the back rank. How does he guard it? Well, he doesn't, and rook takes c7 check, and hopefully Black won't see that he can take the rook for free, but White realized that Black would see it resigned without Black making having to make a move. Okay, so what's the lesson here? The lesson here is always develop your pieces. Know something about openings. Now Black knew the center fork trick. I run into people that don't know it. They have a chance to play it and they don't know it. I'm glad Black knew it. Looks to me like Black's a decent player and can ascend well beyond 14, 15. Just a few little things on the tactics there. And again, I think the recommendation of knight d4 puts the knight a little better posted, but your capture on g6 was nice. It opened up the f-file. You missed the shot on f2, but it's not all that easy to see because, sometimes we put up a blind spot. I call it a thinking deficiency. We say, well, we can't take on f2 because we don't have enough attackers on it. Let's go back to that exact point, and I'll make that again, talk about a thinking deficiency. Okay, so it's at this point that Black missed bishop takes f2 check, or I'm sorry, rook takes f2. Okay, see, White's got two defenders, the king and the rook. And if we look at rook takes f2 and we say, okay, rook takes f2, and then we bring the queen into play, well, he stops and guards it. He'll play queen f1, and then he's ready to play knight d1 if he has to, anything to guard f2. So we kind of stop our analysis there. And then we also look at bishop takes f2, and then we see that if he takes, we take it back. And the king takes, and we've traded off our only two active pieces, our bishop on b6 and our rook. And everything else we own is sitting at home. So sometimes we shut that off and we don't even consider a capture because we know there are as many defenders as there are attackers. And when that's the case, you don't win. You don't win the material. But the follow-up is what's deadly. Queen d4 check. It's I guess it's not that all that hard to see if you just sit and analyze that position, because it's just such a powerful move. And as I showed, the king going back just flat out loses, and king g3 is going to lose, and that's for black to solve. So let's just take one more look here at queen g5 and king h1. White has more good moves, or black has more decent moves here, other than bishop takes f2. Let's see, bishop. If you play bishop g4, he gets f3 in. So, but we could also just take on f2 with the rook. That's another alternative. You know, if we take it there, what's he going to do? Take back. Now, when he gets his fork, the rook is not on that square. Okay, but do we want to trade off this material? That's a good question. If this helps white, I think, tremendously to get rid of some of the pressure. White's got a 4-on-3 pawn majority on the queen side. Black has 3-on-2, but they're double pawns. So if this gets down to a king and pawn ending, white's better. So maybe we don't want to liquidate on f2 at all. Just keep the pressure up somewhere, get developed. Let's see. So let's go back. Just back it up. Wow, I went too far. That's what I don't like about the PGN here. I'm not quite used to it. Okay, so rook takes f2. Instead of rook takes f2, let's, as I say, let's just develop something, anything. We can put the bishop on, you know, on f5. It blocks off the f file, but it's got some indirect pressure on c2. We can put it on d7. The idea being it ties the knight down to defending a pawn. Okay, and then we're planning to play c6 and try to get the knight active, or the bishop active on the long diagonal. Black could play bishop d4. This is interesting. Let's just look at that, bishop d4. Okay, you ask, what's the point of that? Well, the point is that we're going to tie or pin this knight, and if white moves it, we grab a bishop. So how's white going to handle that? Well, you could play something like knight a4. Now that's fine. That just put the knight out of play, right? And maybe now we can go ahead and play bishop takes f2. Now the knight's not over there to do any damage. Okay, so this forces white to come up with a new plan of action. Now we'll be planning to, yeah, like I say, now the threat's on f2 right away. Maybe white has to deal with it. Let's see, what's it going to do? f3, and since we have this nice pin on the knight, maybe we can go and put the bishop on d6. Now we've got some pressure on h2, and we can stop and re-coordinate everything. So bishop d4 is an interesting move that could be explored a little further to see what you can come up with. But all in all, it's a well-played game, White. Congratulations. And sorry I made you wait a day on this. I just completely missed it when I was doing the next one in the list, and I caught it, and I said I'd be back, and here I am. And I thank everyone for their time and looking at this video. I hope it helped. I'll be back to make more, because there's more games in this thread. I'm getting there. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.